If I could tell lawmakers one thing, it would be that they are a key factor into this situation and making it less of a normalized thing. They can make this so that families in the future won't have to mourn their children being shot up at schools.
If I could tell lawmakers anything, it'd be that we will not sit idly by while you sign our death warrants. Places like schools and churches and just honestly everywhere have become hunting grounds for people in America, and we'll just not sit by and wait for you to rectify this issue.
I don't see the purpose of an 18-year-old being able to go buy a gun after they finish blowing out their candles.
The Constitution, the Second Amendment, says a well-armed militia. Citizens are not a militia, and it is not our right to carry guns into a grocery store, into a school, into a church. It's not our right.
All those young adults were at the March for Our Life rally over the weekend in DC, and they were talking about things they maybe want to tell their legislators, their lawmakers, as they go into yet another attempt, or maybe not attempt, to do something about gun violence. But they are looking to hold their feet to the fire here. Let's go to some details, because as we talked about last week, there was a bit of a framework beginning, and now they apparently have an agreement. Let's see some details here, because 20 senators, 10 Democrats, and 10 Republicans signed a statement announcing the framework deal that indicated that the agreement could have enough GOP support to defeat a filibuster, the Senate supermajority rule that has impeded prior gun legislation. So we're already pointing out right there from the beginning, it's Republicans who've always stopped this. So as we even begin this, we know what the problem has always been. But there's a deal happening. Let's see, you guys. Because under the tentative deal, the federal grant program would encourage states to implement a red flag law that would allow authorities to keep guns away from people found by a judge to represent a potential threat to themselves or others, while federal criminal background checks for gun buyers under 21 would include a mandatory search of juvenile justice and mental health records for the first time. These are aspects the Democrats were looking to get and apparently have included in this agreement. There's more from what the Democrats could have wanted. Other provisions would prevent gun sales to domestic violence offenders beyond just spouses, closing what is often called the boyfriend loophole, clarifying which gun sellers are required to register as federal firearms dealers and thus run background checks on their customers, and establish new federal offenses related to gun trafficking. So Jessica, new federal offenses when it comes to gun trafficking, more background checks, looking more into people. But the one thing that is missing though is not raising that age from 18 to 21 for guns like AR-15s or anything else like those.
Yeah, that is missing. I think it's a good sign that red flag laws are getting in. That's pretty huge. Just a week ago, we were talking about how Chris Murphy wasn't exactly projecting confidence about brokering this deal. I think, background checks being expanded is also good considering mental health records, but I think it's also a huge problem that many people don't have access to mental health care because either they don't have mental health care or it's not covered. So I think another important part of the legislation that's not getting really talked about as much in mainstream media is the provision of billions of federal dollars towards establishing mental health facilities, a national network of mental health facilities that's very needed, and more resources in schools. And I think they are ignoring some loopholes here. There's a really straightforward piece of legislation that's not being mentioned as part of this deal. It's HR 1446, and that's closing the 3 business day loophole where you have 3 days to complete the background check. If it's not completed, you can still sell the weapon. This legislation would extend that to 10 days, which would close that loophole and close that gap. And they're not really being specific about who they're requiring to get federal firearms licenses. Are they going to be required for people selling guns at auctions and trade shows? I think they've got to get really specific because those loopholes really matter.
Yeah, it seems like they're selling this as a good framework, but then again, the devil is in the details, as everyone would probably say. But then again, I'm glad you brought up the points about the mental health facilities, because again, that was in it as they're talking about wanting to do something. I was like, oh, looks like they actually want to do something, or maybe there's some framework that feeds off of that rather than it just being an excuse. So let's look at that, because this is some of the things the Republicans did get. Other provisions would funnel billions of new federal dollars into mental health care and school security programs, funding behavioral intervention programs, new campus infrastructure, and armed officers. One cornerstone of the deal is legislation sponsored by Senators Roy Blunt and Debbie Stabenow, it's a Democrat, Roy Blunt is a Republican, to establish a nationwide network of community behavioral health clinics. Now here's the sticking part. Though the framework does not yet include an agreed funding level for that program or others. So again, it's a thought right now, and not really something that leads down to that definitive end. We'll see if they get there, or if maybe this is just something to get people to calm down a bit, and then we kind of forget about it because the 4 or 5 next crises will come, especially when we see what's falling out from this January 6th hearings that'll be going on for a few weeks. Again, I don't want to be that pessimistic because they're trying, but there's not a lot of concrete things yet here. So more, because there's some divisions amongst us. Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, the lead Democratic negotiator, said in an interview on Sunday that the compromise would have detractors on both the right and the left, but it would ultimately make a meaningful difference in combating gun violence. Here's the pitfalls that still remain. The framework announced Sunday amounts to a statement of principles, not a fully written bill. While people involved in the process said last week that significant chunks of the legislation had already been written, new points of friction frequently arise in Congress as the drafting process is finalized. The NRA isn't very happy about it. Emily shot me a couple of these folks that were talking about it on Twitter, because many Republicans, I'm gonna let you jump in there, Jessica. I wanna read a couple of these. There's not graphics yet, but I just read a few of these responses from Republicans that are upset about what I just read about the details that aren't even concrete yet. Marjorie Taylor Greene says the Senate Republicans are everything wrong in the GOP. Too many of them have helped Joe Biden pass his America Last agenda. She said too many Republicans in the Senate have helped Joe Biden pass his agenda because Joe Biden's agenda is somehow passed. Continue on. Even more than the progressive Democrats in the House. The Republican Party needs a drastic identity change for America to survive, or the GOP won't. It went on and on again. There's many of these people who are looking to run for office and also already in office that are saying things like this, Jessica.
Yeah, it's absurd. Marjorie Taylor Greene, does she not know the difference between the Senate and the House? Senate Republicans have not helped Biden pass anything. Neither have Senate Democrats like Manchin and Sinema, and so it's ridiculous. And I think we're kind of where we are last week. At least now they're talking about some specific policy proposals, but still, you're absolutely right. The devil's in the details. They haven't nailed down funding. They could simply not fund this to the extent that's necessary for it to be effective. There's plenty of time for this to go terribly wrong still, but I think it's good to be optimistic and hope that they will get there and get the 60 votes to overcome the filibuster.
So many of them that are lining up to make sure they're not in the wrong here. I did want to say this one line from the NRA because they're holding judgment. This is graphic 9, you guys, but they did say this: the NRA will continue to oppose any effort to insert gun control policies, initiatives that override constitutional due process protections, and efforts to deprive law-abiding citizens of their fundamental right to protect themselves and their loved ones into this or any other legislation. That's what the spokesperson at the NRA said. So many of the people who get paid by the NRA are probably waiting, and they're circling until they find out what they're supposed to do and say. Right now, the NRA doesn't seem to be interested in any of this, as well as many of these Republicans.